Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today it's time to catch up on the news that basically came out yesterday and the day before. The reason why I'm a little bit late on it is because of all the dev server stuff, so I apologize about that, but there's quite a lot of it, so we're going to try and get through it today, and if I don't get through it today, once again, I apologize, and it'll be out in the next few days. So the first thing to look at is a research progress for fleets. Now, this has actually already happened in-game. If you haven't been able to play War Thunder recently, but you have access to Naval Forces CBT, what they did on the 17th was they have planned to reset the progress of the research trees in naval forces. And this was obviously, at the start of CBT, this was said it was going to happen, and therefore, basically, we're gearing up to OBT for naval forces, so they're bringing in all of the stuff that they said that they would do. Now, if you want more information on how they're actually doing this, then obviously there's stuff in the article here, but the trees that are getting reset are the US, German, and Soviet ships, which are obviously the ones which are coming to OBT in updates 1.83. The repair and ammunition resupply Silver Lions will not be compensated, and any earned in battle will remain on the account. So Silver Lions spent on modifications and ship purchase, also crew training to install ships in the setup, will be returned to the accounts. For me personally, I don't think this has happened for me yet, but I could be wrong about that. Golden Eagles, which were spent to accelerate crew training, these will not be compensated. Talismans that were obtained in naval battles will be removed. Just remember, you couldn't buy talismans for naval battles. All you could do is randomly earn them. So they're taking them away. They'll also not reset crew skill points. So this was one of the big things when CBT was announced. The fact that you would be able to keep your crew skill points. Now, what is interesting is, even though they have reset the research, what is actually happening now is you, as a CBT player who is participating in the CBT, can now research your naval vessels, and none of the research will disappear. So even with naval not in OBT yet, as a CBT player, you have access to the ships, and all of the research that you do today and going forward will stay on your account. So this is something that a lot of players have been asking for. This is something that a lot of people, I'm sure, will be happy about. The fact that once now, when you research a vehicle, you get to keep that research. On top of this, they're actually giving some nice stuff as well. They're giving a mermaid emblem, which you can see here, Big Tip McGee on the right. Let's just have a look. There you go. Some very strategically placed hair, and then also the title of Sea Master. So, with all this said, you get some pretty nice stuff out of it for being part of the CBT, but the main thing to understand is if we go to the game here, and you look at the American tree, completely reset, German tree, completely reset, and Soviet tree is also completely reset. So, with that said, now, whatever you research, whether it be modifications, whether it be, vehicles themselves, and I also believe you can still not use Golden Eagles yet, so they're waiting probably until OBT to do that, but whatever you research now, you keep. It is as simple as that. That is what this news article is saying. That is what, is put throughout the article. Now, another thing to take away from this is not OBT yet. So not everybody has access to the naval stuff. Right now, only the CBT testers still have access to it. OBT is going to come on the release of update 1.83. Now, looking at the dev server, and looking at how quickly everything seems to be going right now, there's a bunch of dev blogs that just came out, there's a ton of changelogs. For me, I feel like this update is gonna come really, really soon. Like, the fact that they've put these CBT ships in the state where they are allowed to be freely researched, my opinion is that we're probably gonna see this, like, next week or something. Like, everything, it just seems to be getting rushed really quickly. And a lot of the time, seeing something as rushed is a bad thing. But for me, on the dev server, I didn't find any bugs. The only thing that I would have a real critique on is the German helicopters, just because it doesn't feel very German, I think is the best way of putting it. But overall, there's a lot of content here, and it all looks like it's in great nick. So that to me sounds really cool. But anyway, the open testing will begin on updates 1.83. So don't take this article as letting you know that OBT has now begun. This is just the wipe for the CBT members, and now anything that you research afterwards, you keep as a CBT member. Also, remember, if you have access to the Naval CBT, this does not give you access to the Royal Navy CBT. So in order to get into the Royal Navy CBT, you have to pre-order one of these bundles, the Fairmile D-Pack or the HMCS Hyder. Now, both of these vehicles I did videos on in the last few days, so if you want to know anything about them, please give those videos a watch. They're on the channel, and the Hyder looks great. It looks like a really good a formidable meta destroyer, which is basically what you want, because there are some destroyers which are just worse than others, and the Hyder is in that category where it's the meta destroyer instead of the worst one. The Fairmile is at a bit of a dodgy BR, but because of the fact that it has access to torpedoes, 2 different types of torpedoes, which is kind of cool, and also it has the 57mm on it, there's a little bit of flexibility here. If it's at its tier or down tiered, you can see it doing really well. If it gets up tiered, at least it has the opportunity to have the torpedoes and to be able to fight against some of the larger ships. Overall, I think they're both good vehicles, but I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. It's obviously completely up to you. It's a value judgment at the end of the day. In addition, in the upcoming updates, you can participate in daily tasks where completing them will allow players to join the tester team for free. We will tell you about this later. We're also not planning to reset any research progress for the participants of the Royal Navy CBT. So, if you get into the Royal Navy CBT, you also don't get your research reset. So from this point forward, when it comes to Naval, with everything that we have in the game, there is going to be no reset of anything. So that's the main point here. A lot of people were complaining about the fact that there was a reset. Well, now there just ain't one, right? It's done. The resetting idea is gone, and now we're moving forward with everything that you research, you keep. So that's good, unless something changes in the future, of course. Now, if you remember, for helicopters, they did the helicopter stars. And with the helicopter stars, you had to do 10 of them to get access to helicopters, and 12 of them to get a decal. In this sentence here, they talk about the similar system for the Royal Navy CBT. So if you don't want to pre-order a pack and you still want access to the Royal Navy, all you have to do is do these, do these amount of tasks, daily tasks, in order to get involved into the Royal Navy. This will mean that you will get access a little bit later than others, but at the same time, it also means that you don't have to pay. So there is a way of getting into it which is non-monetary, and it'll just take you a few more days to do it. So that is the main look at that, which is the changes to Naval going on. Now let's have a look at some of the server updates, or the changelog. So the first one is a bug related to the working mechanics of the referral system has been fixed. So pretty simple. Hopefully that means that it works. Something that I did notice when I was having a look at the messages, because I was having a look to see if I had got like any of the stuff for, my Silver Lions back or anything from Naval Forces. I don't think I have yet, but when I went to achievements, I got 70,000 Silver Lions for friend invitation, and I'm guessing that's through the description below. So whoever that was, whoever achieved the second rank in War Thunder through the referral link, well done, keep going, bud. And everybody who is new to the game, as I've said many times, just keep going. It's a very fun game. There's a lot of content to it. We're getting like 50 new vehicles in the update. Think about how crazy that is. We're getting a whole new type of game mode. We're getting more helicopters. I don't think no, they're not here yet for Germany. But you're getting so many different ships. You're getting different stuff into OBT. There's a lot going on in War Thunder right now. And one of the big things about update 1.81 that kind of what's the word? It didn't rub me the wrong way, but for me personally, a lot of the content in update 1.81 I just wasn't interested in. And what I mean by this is rank 6 stuff. That's why you haven't seen a lot of reviews of a lot of vehicles, because a lot of the vehicles, being rank 6, were very hard to grind out, and second of all, they're just not, to me, that interesting. I am not a rank 6 player. I'm not a rank 5 jet player. I'm not a rank 6 modern MBT player. I'm a rank 3 and 4 and sometimes 5 player when it comes to War Thunder, when it comes to tanks, and in aircraft, I really like rank 3 and 4. And then in ships, I like rank 1 and 2. So if there isn't content for those areas, then generally an update for me personally is not going to be very good. So the last update overall wasn't very good for me personally, but this update, there's a ton of stuff. You know, there's a lot of new interesting things. There's a bunch of, a few new locations. There's obviously a bunch of sea maps to have a look at. There's a ton of things for the average player, which for me is very happy to see. And there's a little bit for everyone as well, unless you are into planes. I suppose there's a little bit less for that, but at least you still get the MB, is it the 175, which is, I suppose, an interesting aircraft. You also have the updated F4Fs, so there's that. And I'm sure soon we're going to have the festive event start as well. Well, not soon, but in a few months, so there's that to look forward to as well. Anyway, so we had 1.8, 1.2.27. What this did was fixed a few bugs. So a bug occurring when dropping an aircraft's last bomb, where the bomb site would become displaced, has been fixed. That is a very odd bug, but it's nice to see that it's fixed. A bug where other players could hear sound emanating from helicopters which had their engines off has been fixed. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. One of the things that was incredibly annoying in ground forces was when you'd shoot a helicopter down and it would land next to you and it wouldn't shut up. Even though it wasn't moving, it didn't even have a propeller anymore and it was just constantly making noise. This was one of the things that happened a lot on the Fields of Poland map, where you're playing quite defensively and then you've got a helicopter just making so much sound in your ear. It was incredibly jarring, so I'm happy that that's been fixed. A bug resulting in an incorrect switch of camera view for the Mi-24A helicopter following the message "Gunner target in the dead zone" has been fixed. That is a really odd bug, but it's nice to see it fixed. The laptop AMD discrete GPU crash has also been fixed. And now they also did a bunch of economy changes as well. So the economy changes for repair price costs and multipliers of vehicle awards. So if you want more information on this, I'm slowly but surely getting through them. Unfortunately, I would have had them all done by now, but the dev server decided to drop. So I have done a few videos looking at the USA changes and the Germany changes. What I'll do over the next few days is have a look at the Soviet, Britain, Japan, Italy, and France. But understand that these economy changes, they were planned before. Now they are in the game as of the 16th, so yesterday. So with that said, the repair cost should have been changed. And if you want more information about them, I'll make sure to produce some videos on them in the next few days. The reward will depend on the time spent in the game session. The longer you play, the higher the reward will be. So this is in reference to the video that was made by BVVD, the Parts FPE and research video, which I think overall the general belief from the video was that it was positive. I haven't seen many people complaining about the changes. The only real complaint that I've heard is that now it is easier for people to get into higher tier vehicles, and I think that is a valid concern, but this was an issue I personally raised when rank 590 tanks started coming out. Stuff like the XM1, and then you had the FJ and the IS-7, and we have all of these very high-tier vehicles, so generally quite low-tier players are able just to get up into these higher tiers. And that's completely fine if you want to do that. I personally think it wasn't the greatest idea, just because now you have a lot of skill variants, where before you at least had to, in the majority of cases, earn your way up there instead of just buying it. So with that said, yeah, it's kind of annoying. Anyway, they got rid of the reward cap as well, which is good. And basically all the changes that BVVD talked about in that video have now been implemented when it comes to the research parts. The stuff that isn't in yet is the repair assistance thing, or, asking for repairs. That wasn't even on the dev server. So I've got a feeling that either that feature will come in the second dev server, or that feature will have to wait a little bit. They did say they want it out by update 1.83, and since 1.83 seems to be coming pretty soon, like a freight train, I feel like it should have been on the dev server. Also, activity of a player will be calculated relative to the time that they have spent in-game and not based on the total session time, which will lead to an increase in activity and accordingly rewards for players who cannot finish the session to the end. So overall, it's going to be much more calculated on, instead of the match time, your actual time in battle. So let's say a match goes for 20 minutes, but you're only alive for 5 minutes, but you could have a massive game impact in those 5 minutes, but because of the old system, it would work it out as if you were only there for a quarter of the time, so therefore you would be divided by 4 instead of divided by 1. Now, with this new system, it takes into account the amount of time that you're in battle here instead of the whole time. So instead of, as I said, divided by 4, divided by 1, should give you more RP across the board for your actions. Now, obviously, one of the things that would be really nice to see when it comes to this research stuff, I'd love to see the calculation. I'd love to see the equation that they use. Now, I understand why they don't, because if they do, then people will learn how to game the equation. They will see which part of it is overrepresented, and they will just meta the hell out of that. Min-maxing is a thing. It's a thing in every MMO. It's a thing in the majority of games, especially multiplayer ones, so people will figure it out. And since grinding or researching is a large part of the game for a lot of people, they'll want to min-max the equation. The new system will not affect the rewards for actions in battle. Well, there you go. That's nice as well. So, overall, positive changes for the research, which is something that I brought up in the video. If you want to know more information about that, get some more clarification, the video I did a few days ago, going over BVVD's comments, is probably the one to go to, because I explain it all out there. Then, the last server update on the 17th, we actually get some research changes for simulator battle, which is wonderful. So in all variants of aircraft simulator battle, so what it's talking about here is enduring confrontation or any events that may come up for simulator battle. They have a new system of RP reward calculation. So for victory and defeat, it has been switched on. The higher than other game modes average earnings of RP in this mode will be increased by 30%. In the battle result tab, the display of the bonus to event reward has been deleted and the rewards for actions in a battle have been reduced by 20%. So they've increased the average earnings of RP compared to every other game mode by 30, and then they've reduced the amount of rewards you get per action in a battle. So in the overall total amount you've increased by 30, but the actual actions which create that total amount you've decreased by 20. So in the grand scheme of things, you should be getting more, if I'm getting this correctly. I might be wrong on this though, but overall it seems like that is the way to go. The economy changes here. I don't know why it brings us to this tab, but it does. What a weird one. But anyway, yeah, so the higher than other game modes average earnings of RP in this mode will be increased by 30%. So the overall average earnings will be increased. And then in the battle result tab on the display of the bonus to event reward has been deleted, so that's gone, and the rewards for actions in a battle have been reduced by 20%. So each action is reduced by 20%, but the overall average earnings should be increased, is the way that I see this. So overall, this is a positive change for aircraft simulator battles, meaning that you get more RP. Now before, you would get more RP anyway compared to other modes. Now it just seems to be a little bit boosted. If I'm wrong about this, it would be nice to have some clarification. I might be wrong about it, but what I see here is you have the opportunity to be able to do better. And because they put more of an onus on the average earnings instead of the individual actions, it seems like they're taking out a little bit of the layer of skill that's involved and putting it more to just trying to get people to play the game mode. So you don't always necessarily have to do really well to get good RP now, where before it was heavily skewed in the skill area. This is something that on ground forces is the same, but with ground forces now, because they've got rid of the cap, they've made it so really skilled people can get a crazy amount of RP. So they're actually earning what they should have been ages ago. You know, basically their skill is reflected in the amount of research that they're getting, which is really cool. Overall, these were the changelogs. Overall, very positive. The fact that we get to keep our research now for naval. All the economy changes have come in. The repair costs, so far, if you haven't watched the videos, the German ones were generally quite bad for the Germans. A lot of German fighters were increased by quite a lot. Some German tanks were decreased, such as the Tiger IIs and the rank 4 area for Germany. Some of the other tanks were increased, such as the Leopard 2A4, but it's still half the price of one Abrams, so you don't have to worry too much about it. The Ferdinand was 17,000. Which was kind of crazy. The two Abrams, they actually made them pretty much the same price, so they upped the M1 Abrams by about 1,000, and the M1 IP they dropped by 7,000, so they're both around 10 to 11,000 stock at this moment in time. So, and also the fighters for the Americans were just dropped across the board, apart from a certain select few, but the majority, especially jets, there was a big emphasis on dropping jet prices, and I'm guessing this is because they're getting hammered by the Canadair Sabre and the G91, so they're trying to get them, people playing them, and even if they do badly, they still make some money out of them. Anyway, this was the video looking at all the changelogs and the naval tech tree changes. I will be doing another few videos on the dev blogs, and I'll also be doing some videos on the economy changes over the next day or so. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.